Good morning, buddy. Hopefully you had a wonderful weekend, and thanks for being on the call here today, even though it's a holiday for a lot of people in our industry. Yeah. Well, I was just telling Missy that I watched the whole game, and at 30 seconds, I turned off the TV and went to dinner because I was like, we screwed it up one more time, and found out at 8:30 in the afternoon that, or at 8:30 last night that they actually won. Didn't believe the person telling me that. So, yeah, it's pretty. That's crazy. So, got a lot of stuff to cover today. I think, but first, let's talk about the 5-minute moneymaker last week. Basically, telling you or going through the things that you are all good at. But even though you're good at it, it makes sense to know what you're good at, know why it's important, and get even better at those things. So make sure you have looked at that. And then the 5Q tape breakdown. On the surface, this guy sounds awesome in this section of the power of attorney. But at the end, does he get what the client is telling him what he needs to hear? So it does, guys. If you do the whole script right, but then screw up the last 10%, is that going to help you? Yeah, a little. It's going to help you a little, but you're not going to get the power of the script. The motivation is the most important part. So make sure you listen to what's going on there. China is reportedly thinking of halting U.S. Treasury purchases, and that's a worrying markets. The report notes that Chinese officials think U.S. debt is becoming less attractive when compared with other assets. Are they the only people in the world thinking that, guys? Trade tensions between the two countries could provide a reason to slow down the halt of purchases. Treasury in dollars fell on the report. Gold rose. China is the biggest buyer of sovereign debt. So this bodes well for the economy or not so well for the economy? If they quit buying our debt, we've got big problems. So we're going to talk about one part of our system that I don't talk about very often, because if you do the system right, you don't need it. But we're going to, everybody has a lapse or a temporary mistake and, or loss of focus, and something that's happened. So the 5Q system is built on 4 cornerstones. Mutual respect, which means I respect the client, but they must respect me. What I have people visualize, if you take your 2 index fingers and push them against each other lightly so that they stay right exactly in front of you. Now push harder with your right one, and the left one moves. You shouldn't move. You should always remain at neutral. So if they push a little bit, you need to push a little bit. If they push harder, you need to push harder. So if somebody's being rude with me, I'm going to gotch them and be more direct with them. So this system is built on mutual respect. I respect them, but they must respect me. Second thing is it's built on don't sell, tell, preach, or teach. This is the one we talk about all the time, so I don't have to spend any time on that one. Get invited in. What this means is that I never say, hey, would you like me to take a look at this? Would you like me to do this? Would you like me to do that? I never do that. I say, what do you want me to do? Where do you see me fitting in? What is this, an academic exercise, or do you want me more hands-on? So they must invite me in. I never push my way in. But what we're going to talk about today is overcoming the objection. But the way the system works is if you do the scripts right, if you do the scripts as I lay them down, how often should you be getting objections? A lot or not very many? Not very many, because basically they are telling themselves why they need to do things. But we all have lapses, and we do have objections every once in a while. But if we the main thing we'd like you to consider is overcome the objection before they bring it up. That's why the scripts are laid out the way they are. In 18 years of teaching this to guys and 20 years of using it very successfully, myself and the guys included, I know where the objections are going to be. So what we've done a long time ago, 18 years ago, was we overcame in the script, scripting that overcomes the objection before they bring it up. If we know there's going to be objection at a certain part of the meeting, 2 minutes before that, we have a part of the script that has them overcome it before it becomes an objection. So that's the way the scripts are laid out. And that's why sometimes you're wondering, why is we just beating this dead horse? Why is this in here? Why do we have to cover this? The reason, if you're wondering that, there's probably a 90% chance the reason it's in the script is because we know there will be an objection, a possible objection coming up. So we're having them overcome it, the client overcome it before they even voice it. Now, why do we need to do it before they bring it up? Why do you think we need to overcome objections before they bring it up? What would your guess be? Shows we have no bias. Yeah, I'd keep focused. So is their idea, Till, you got it. See, if they say their objection, it's true. They voice their objection, it's true. So what's the only way to overcome an objection? If they think something's true, what's the only thing we can get, in order to overcome it, what do we get them to have to admit? What do they have to admit? That they're wrong, Till, exactly. That's right, Jonathan, Justin, Dave, that they're wrong. So they have to admit that they're wrong. How many people like to admit that they're wrong? Nobody. So that's why we like to overcome the objection before they bring it up. Otherwise, we have to deal with this whole thing about a client admitting that they're wrong. And we know how to do it. But guess what? Do you think it's easy or hard to do to get to a client to admit that they're wrong? That's hard. Hard. Because nobody likes to admit that they're wrong. In fact, here's the sad thing. How many people, you probably can guess this about me. If I'm in an argument with somebody, in the heat of the battle, and this is a heated argument, and halfway through that argument, I figure out I'm wrong. I'm on the wrong side of this argument. Do you think I'm going to, in the middle of that argument, say, oh, shoot, you're right, I'm wrong? Have we all in the middle of an argument continued to argue our point of view, even though in the middle we know we're wrong, just so we don't have to admit that we're wrong? Now, do we want your wife? I won't even say who said that, just to protect yourself. One of the guys says my wife. So we don't want to get into that situation, because if a client does that fight, what's just happened to our sale? We're done. It's over. Okay. So that's a challenge that we have. But here's the great thing about a challenge, and I think that we've all heard this whole thing that the Chinese definition of, is it crisis or what's it? The Chinese definition of a certain word means opportunity and challenge. It means two different things: opportunity and challenge. So it can either be a challenge or it can be crisis, I think, too. So it could be either a challenge or an opportunity. But we'd like to change the objection from a crisis to an opportunity. We'd like to change it from a situation where they've lobbed the objection over to us, and then what are we going to do? Lob a reason why their objection is not valid back to them, and then what do? Say, oh, okay, you're right. Is that what they say? Or what do they do when we do that? They lob an objection to us. We overcome the objection. What do they do back to us? They lob us another one. Back and forth. We'd rather change it from an adversarial relationship to a rapport building. So we're taking something that's probably the worst crisis in a meeting, right? What's the worst possible thing that can happen in a meeting? An objection. And instead, what we want to do is go from turning an objection into an adversarial relationship into a rapport building relationship. And we're going to show you how we do that. See, it's how you respond to the objection that's going to depend on what the client's response is going to be. How you respond is going to depend on how the client's going to respond back. So you probably remember seeing this when you came out to training. The National Association of Sales Professionals, this is what we've been taught for years on how to handle objections. This is what we've been taught for years. And it's 100% wrong. So we've been taught is step one. Hear them out. That's the only thing in this whole thing that's right. Yes, we should hear them out. But then it says put in a softening statement before you answer. Do we put in a softening statement, guys? No, what do? Yeah, we got some. In fact, I use the word absolutely. Does that sound like a softening statement? No, I'm saying absolutely. You're absolutely right. See, what we've been taught to do is say, no, I understand how you feel. Guys, anybody that is, if you say that, if you're on the receiving end of that, what do you know is coming after I understand and I know how you feel? When you're talking to your teenage son and he says, I want to go to this concert, and you say, I understand how you feel, what does he know is coming? Yeah, that's right, Till, Jerry, wait, but, Dave, but, everybody's getting but. We do not do that. We don't know softening statement. We just say, absolutely. Absolutely. Step two, question and isolate the objection. What is it about the price that you find, or why is the price too high, or what is it about the price too high, or if it's an annuity, what is it you don't like about annuities? You're to ask a question to isolate the objection. So when you do that, how does it make people feel? When you're on the receiving end, how does it make you feel? You're buying a car, you say, you know what, this car doesn't get enough gas mileage, and they say, I understand how you feel. Now, what is it about the gas mileage that you don't like, or what kind of gas mileage are you actually looking for? Does that make you feel good, or does it make it sound like the guy is backing you into a corner? Yeah, he's boxing you in, John. Exactly. Frustrated. Exactly, Tom. So we don't do that. What do we do here? We say absolutely, and then what do? That's right. We agree with them, Cheryl. We tell them why their objection is right. Step 3, answer the objection. Do we ever answer anything, guys? No. Who answers everything for us? You guys are so smart. Everybody's getting on. That's awesome. You guys are making my day. They have to tell us because I have an agenda. I want to sell them something. I want to make money off of them. That's what they think about me. Whether I do or not, that's what they think about me. So I can't say anything. They have to overcome their own objections. Do I ever confirm an answer? What's this? Does that answer it for you? Have I satisfied for you? Does that make sense? Do we ever ask questions like that? What's wrong with those questions? What's wrong with those questions? They're close-ended, Cheryl, right? We never ask close-ended questions. Say, so why then would you want to buy this annuity? Or why is liquidity not a problem for you? Why would you want to pay this much for this car? Why is it okay? Why is the gas mileage okay? So you ask them why, open-ended. They tell us. They confirm the answer for us. We don't confirm the answer for them. And then we ask for the deal. We never ask for the deal. They ask us for the deal. Remember, we get invited in. So we're going to go through our actual formula or template for that today and how we would use that. But the reason this is so important is William Miller is one of the two guys that invented, he didn't invent it, actually, we talked about it. 400 years ago, motivational interviewing was invented, but Miller and Rolnick actually, systematized motivational interviewing. They systematized motivational interviewing, and they made this point that you could be, if you're trying to tell a drunk to quit drinking, if you're trying to get a betting or a gambling addict to stop gambling, if you tell them to do that, what are they going to do? Do more of it. But what they found was this: what if you were good at just asking open-ended questions for 49 meetings? Open-ended questions. You're never telling them to do anything. You're letting the client discover for themselves they should quit drinking or quit gambling, and you ask open-ended question after open-ended question after open-ended question, 49 meetings, and then at the 50th meeting with them, you say, listen, you gotta quit drinking, you gotta quit gambling, it's hurting your family. Don't you see how much it's hurting your family? What's just happened to the previous 49 meetings? Yep, you blew it, John, exactly. So what's just happened to the loss, Raymond? Exactly. Shot the heck, Nicholas. So if you make one mistake, you can be having, geez, I think it was about a year ago, a guy sent me a tape, and it was the most beautiful meeting ever. I mean, he did everything perfectly. And then he did one mistake at the very end of the meeting. He said, do you have any more questions? The guy asked a question, and the guy and the advisor blew it. I mean, this guy was putty in, this client was putty in the advisor's hands. And then at the end, the advisor made the mistake of saying, do you have any other questions? Which you never should ask a question you don't know how the client's going to answer. That was the first thing. But then, you know what? When the client said something he didn't, I don't remember what it was, but this client said something, and the advisor tried to quote unquote educate him on why that was not a good way to think. And guess what happened? Do you think that the advisor ever heard from that guy again? Nope. Gonzo, right, Wade? Gonzo. So that's the problem with this, especially the bigger the client, the more of a high wire act we are walking, or the less of a high wire act we're walking. Yeah, the more. You can get the 50,000 person. You can make mistakes all over the place. You'll still get that person. But boy, when you start talking with people with real money, you can't afford to make these mistakes because do they trust us? Does anybody trust us 100%? No. So one little mistake, boom, we're done. So here's how I'd like you to think about objections. And if you go into a meeting thinking this, you're going to be far better off. Because unfortunately, we think the client's there for what? Why do we think a client's come to see us? For help, right, Dave? So why would they argue with us? Why are they going to try to fight us when we're just there to help? But how does a client see it? Do they see us there to help them? What's the client see that we're there to do? To sell them. Yep, to sell them. So here's how I like to think about it. If I'm on the football field and somebody just lays into me, I've got the ball, and somebody lays into me, what do? I'm running. Yeah, I say, good tackle, Till. Pat him on the back. And then I go back to the huddle and do it all over again. Do I get angry? At myself, maybe, but do I get mad at them for giving me a good tackle? No, it's part of the game. It's what I expect. Do I expect to get tackled if I'm carrying a ball on a football field? Yes, I do. Now, what if I'm walking down the street and somebody out of the blue just tackles me? Now what am I going to do? I'm going to be angry. I'm going to fight, exactly. What the heck are you doing, dude? Because on the street, do I expect to be tackled? No. So here's the thing: I'm tackled in both places. One place I'm expected to be tackled. The other place I'm not expected to be tackled. In which place did I handle it better? In the street or on the football field? Which place did I handle it better? On the field, because I expected it. So what do you think you should do going into a meeting? Yes, it's a football field. Expect to get tackled, Wade. Expect to get tackled, Nicholas. I'm expecting to get tackled. So when I get an objection, I say, aha, I knew that. I was looking for that. Instead of saying, oh, my God, where'd that come from? Am I going to handle it better if I'm looking for it and say, aha, I was waiting for that to happen? Or am I going to handle it better if I say, oh, my God, where did that happen from? Where'd that come from? If I'm looking for it, I'm going to handle it better. My brother and I used to have a game after school that whoever got home first, we would hide around a corner and try to scare the bejesus out of the other guy. But because you know it's happening, guess what you'd do? You'd steel yourself for knowing he's going to jump out. You steel yourself knowing he's going to jump out, and when he jump out, you would, because you were looking for it, you could kind of hide the fact that it startled you, or maybe not even be startled. But if you're walking into your house and you don't expect anybody to be there and somebody jumps out, guess what? I'm going to land on my keister in surprise. So go into meetings knowing we're going to get objections, because does anybody really want to just roll over dead for you? How do they feel if they're moving $1 million to you and they just agree, oh, wow, you're great, you're awesome, I can't believe I remember, man, you're great, let's just move it, the money. They'd feel, how would you feel if you just walk into a car, a dealership and say, yeah, give me, what do you got? Pay full price? Yeah, let's do that. How do you feel? You feel like you got to give them some level of resistance, or you feel like you got a bad deal or that you were taken. Okay? So, but here's the great thing about what we're doing. I've basically looked at all the possible objections we can get, and there's about 45 of them. There's about 45 total objections, and I've even included one that one of my guys in Texas got, which was, I don't think I can do this because the rapture is coming. And I'll tell you straight out, the guy used the exact template I'm going to give you, and guess what he got? He got the entire $500,000 from that couple, because he used the template I'm going to lay out today. So guys, how many of you would be prepared to handle somebody saying, I don't think I can move forward because of the rapture? Wade, I believe you could. Yeah. So everybody else is saying, boy, that would be a tough thing to do. But he just actually used the template, and as Wade says, Wade's good at this. He can handle those kind of things. But the great thing is we don't have an unlimited amount of objections. Really, out of those 45, it comes down to about 10 or 15 of the same objections over and over and over. So, and I'm going to jump out here just so you know. If you go to the website, under implementation meeting, see objections, handling objections. Let's hit that. And then we go to bottom lines. So here's the great thing. I'm going to give you the template. I'm going to give you the template on how we overcome objections. But what everybody's afraid of, well, what do I do then? How do I overcome it at the end? I understand that I have to got some, agree with them, I got some, and all that stuff, but then how do I eventually overcome the objection? Well, we have those right here, and we'll come back and look at those here in a second, but that's where they're at. So we'll come back and look at those in when we get to that part of the meeting, okay? So let's see, I have to go back to from current slide. Okay. So like we said, whoops, the first thing is, the most important thing is when they give us an objection, we should take it in stride. We know the customers are going to say things, that we know they're going to give us objection, so we need to take it in stride. What do you think the first step of taking it in stride is? What do you think the first step of taking it in stride is? Smile, Till, you got it. Smile is the second thing. Everybody else is giving me breath, Jonathan, you got it. Slow down. Take a breath. Slow it down. What's our natural inclination when we get an objection or we get nervous or we get anxious? To slow down or speed up? To speed up. And when we're speeding up, what's happening to our ability to think straight? That's slowing down. So as we're speeding up, we're thinking less clearly. So first thing is when you get an objection, slow it down. The other thing you think about is, do we sound, when we talk slower, do we sound like we're more in control or less in control? And the example I like to use is this. Let's say that I'm on a California beach and I am a businessman, and some skateboarder, runs over my toe. Do I have every reason to say, what the hell, get off, you shouldn't be on the sidewalk, and what the hell you run over my toe for? Do I have every reason to say that to him? So I start yelling at him, and I'm yelling, and I'm talking 100 miles an hour and yelling, and the skateboarder's like, dude, I'm sorry, man. I didn't see you there. I apologize. My bad. Sorry. And I'm screaming at him, and he's like, dude, what can I do? How can I help you? What are the bystanders? Whose side are the bystanders taking? As I'm screaming at him, and the skateboarder's talking nice and slow, like that. Whose side? Skateboarder's side, right? Why? Because he sounds what? Reasonable. He's talking slow. He's like, dude, sorry. What can I do to help? I mean, my bad. Shouldn't have done that. Would you like me to, I can buy you a new pair of shoes? I mean, what would you, and I'm screaming at him, talking 100 miles an hour. Everybody there thinks the skateboarder is reasonable, and I'm out to lunch, even though it's the complete opposite. It's the way we conduct ourselves. So you got to slow down, take a deep breath, and smile. If you show that you're anxious, what's going to happen? If you show any nervousness, apprehension, self-doubt, what's going to happen? Not good things. Okay? So, first thing we want to do is always slow down and smile. We can't show them that they've shaken us. Also, you're much better. I mean, what do you tell your son when he's screwing something up, like he's putting a model together and he's screwing it up, or he's trying to build something and he's screwing it up, or he's trying to learn a new skill? Yes, that's right. Slow down, Dave. We tell him, slow down. Take a breath. Think about what you're doing. If it's good enough for them putting a model together, what is it good enough for us trying to close a $1 million deal? Absolutely. Now, I want you to change how you think about their objection. How many objections are valid? I want everybody to answer this. How many objections are valid? Jonathan's got it right. Raymond's got it right. Nicholas has got it right. About 90% of you are getting it right. All of their objections are valid. If you were in their shoes, would you have said the same thing? Just a stranger. Yes, you would have. Really? For those of you that said no, they're not valid, think about it. If your mom was going to be turning over $1 million to some stranger she'd only known for 2 weeks, do you think it would be good for her to give you the same objection that client is giving you? I hope you say yes. I hope you say yes. So all objections are valid. So let's look at the anatomy of an objection. First of all, it's a declaration of the client's free will. What do I mean by that? Do any of it, like I said, when you go into a car dealership, do you feel good about just paying the sticker price? No, because it makes it look like what? Somebody's gotten one over on you. Does anybody like somebody to get one over? They want to know they have control, right, Jonathan? They want to feel like they have control. It's a declaration of the client's free will. You can't make me do anything. You're not selling me. If I buy this, it isn't because you sold it. It's because I want to buy it. It's their declaration of free will. Second thing is, they know we're going to fight back. So when they give us that objection, do they think we're going to roll over, or do they think we're going to fight back? They know we're going to fight back. So their fight flight kicks in. What happens to their pulse rate? What happens to their blood pressure when they fight back? What happens to their whole physicality? It gets more anxious. And when we're anxious, are we good thinkers or bad thinkers? We're bad thinkers. We're bad listeners. We're not paying attention to what's going on. We're trying to protect ourselves either by fighting or fleeing. Now, that's what happens to a client. What happens to you? Same thing. Why do you think the first thing I want you to do is slow down, take a breath, and smile? Because what's our first instinct when somebody says we do something we don't like? You guys have seen it on the phone. What's my first instinct when somebody says something I don't like? So we got to fight that, and you got to slow it down. Well, let me ask you a quick question here. From what you've learned today, why do you think? Hey, I'm teaching you how to overcome an objection. And what happens to me when somebody resists me or gives me an objection on a coaching call? What happens to me? Am I happy? Do I take a deep breath? No, I fight. I get what? I get revved up. I scream. And I go after that guy. So why am I going nuts? Because getting prepared for the call, what did I prepare myself? What preparation did I not do? Where's my mistake when I blow up at somebody on a coaching call? Where's my mistake? Didn't slow down. That's one mistake. Jerry, I didn't expect the objection. So you're right, Wade. I didn't slow down when I got the objection. But the reason I made the mistake of not slowing down is because I didn't expect any objections. I'm thinking guys are on here for help. They're here to make the kind of money I can help them make. So what the hell are they pushing back on? So I didn't go into the coaching call with the idea of, hey, you know what? There may be some objections here. If I was looking for the objection, what would I have done? Saying, aha. I see Jim Bob there gave me the objection. I knew I was going to get one today, and just take a breath and use the template. Use the template on them. So, I got no audio. Are you getting audio, Missy?
Yep, it's just fine.
Okay. So, do you get that? I don't care how good you are. There's very few guys that are as good as me at this. But guess what? If you're not ready for something, it doesn't matter what your skill level is. What's going to happen? You're going to react. That's right. You're going to react instead of using your skills. So we don't want to be in fight flight ourselves. We don't want the client to be in fight flight because we're going to quit listening, and we don't want to quit listening. Because as soon as that happens, what's happening to their resistance level? What's happening to the resistance level? It's going up and up and up. And if I try to just overcome if I just try to overcome the objection, here's the thing. There's two agendas here. Is there one agenda or two agendas when they give us the objection? There's two. So should I be worried about ours? No, I need to drop our agenda, which is to overcome their objection. I need to adapt and address the client's agenda. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to GOTS them. I'm going to use a template, because it's only after I do this. It's only after I drop my agenda, tell them their agenda is absolutely the front and center, the foremost of my concern, that they're going to sit and listen to me. Does that make sense? So what's the template for overcoming objection? First thing is I have to acknowledge their objection. Then I'm going to parrot it back in the form of a question. Then I'm going to get on the client's side. And after I've done all of these things, so these first three things are all about what? Telling the client what? That they are what? They are right, that they're right. After they know that I agree with them and that they're right and that they're among friends rather than foes, I'm going to use the word and instead of but. Why do I have to use the word and as a connection instead of but, to connect getting on their side to overcome the objection? What? Because but says they're wrong. It basically eliminates all the hard work I've done with the first three if I don't use and instead of but. And then I'm going to have them tell me why they should move forward. So I'll go back here a second. So this number 5, have them tell me why they should move forward. If I go back to the website and go back to, oops, I have to find my Adobe. So the why here is when they tell me the fees are too high. Again, what if they tell me the fees are too high? What do I know I did? If they tell me the fees are too high, what do I know I did? Yeah, I sold instead of using. Did I do a good job with the FIA presentation? No, because there's about a 10-minute thing in there where they tell me the fees are not too high. But if I made a mistake, I have to overcome it. So what I would do is use the acknowledge your objection. Fees are too high. I'm going to say, oh, absolutely. And then pair it in the form of a question. I mean, paying high fees for an investment is the wrong thing to do, isn't it? And they're going to say what to that? Yes. And then I'm going to say, yeah, because if you pay fees, we're going to go through 5 different reasons why that's right. Then I'm going to use the word and then I'm going to have them tell me why their objections are not important. So what I'm going to have them tell me is the fees are lower than the fees they're already paying. I'm going to have them tell me you don't mind paying as long as you're getting something for, which is what the whole FIA presentation is about, right? And so we have these bottom lines. You're always worried about, well, then how do I eventually overcome the objection? Here's all of the different objections you can get and what you want them to say. When? Before or after you got some? After. These are the things you want the client to say after you got some. So I don't want to pay high fees. I want to see everything in writing. Can I sleep on this? Here's all the objections you could possibly get, and what you can say, or what the point that you want the client to make afterwards. Make sense? So that's right there under the implementation meeting, handling objections, and then it's right here, bottom lines. So if you ever need to use that, that's what you want the client to say when you go back here. That's what you want them to tell you when it comes to that objection. Okay. So if you ever need more bottom lines, you let me know and I'll add more. But most of them are already there. So let's break this down into pieces. Acknowledge. So when we acknowledge, I use the word absolutely. And again, that's the first thing that comes out of my mouth. I've turned it into a reflex action where because I know that if anything else comes out of my mouth, I'm going to be putting my foot in my mouth. So I want something to come out of my mouth immediately rather than putting my foot in my mouth, because I'm going to want to argue with somebody. I'm going to want to tell them they're wrong. So I have to come up with a reflex action that takes the place of that reflex action of arguing with them. So I use absolutely, but here's some other ones you could use. You could use the word definitely, exactly, without question, very true, unquestionably, you're right, I agree. Any of these you could say, okay? Or any other ones you want to say. But this is the first thing that should come out of your mouth. Now, why do we want to do that? What happens to them when we do that? What are they expecting us to do? Agree or disagree? Yeah, they drop their guard because it makes them confused. Wait a minute. Why is he saying, I thought he was going to argue. When I said I don't like annuities, I thought he was going to argue with me. Instead, he's saying absolutely. He doesn't like annuities either. Wow, what's going on here? Is it okay if they're wondering what's going on? Yes, because what's happened to this whole athletic stance to fight against you? What's happened to their athletic stance to fight against you? It's gone, and they stood up and said, what just happened here? They're kind of struggling. See, it removes that defensive stance, okay? So that's the first thing you want to do. Then the next thing you want to do is pair it back in the form of a question. And when we do that, it gets them agreeing with us immediately. It gets them agreeing with us immediately. So what do we mean by that? So you got to pair it back. We want them to say, we're going to end a statement with, isn't it? doesn't it? Wouldn't you? Shouldn't you? Don't you? I mean, so if they say, I don't want to be locked into anything that's not liquid, we would say, absolutely. I mean, you don't want to be locked into anything that's liquid, do you? And what do they immediately say at that point? Well, how are they going to answer that? No. So you don't want to be locked in anything that isn't liquid, do you? No, I don't. I don't want to. No, exactly. So now they've gone from giving me an objection to me agreeing with them, and then all of a sudden, within 10 seconds, they're what? So we went from them disagreeing with me, objecting to me, and 10 seconds later, they're what? Back to agreeing with me. They're back to agreeing with me. So, and don't get worried about the getting them saying yes, getting them saying yes. Get them. Does it matter? Do I really care whether they say yes or no, or do I just care that they're agreeing with me? Yeah, Leonard, you're right. All I care is that they're agreeing with me. That's it. So when they say it's too, this isn't liquid enough, you say absolutely. I mean, we don't want to be. You don't want to be locked in anything that's not liquid, do you? Now what's happening to their brain? It's exploding because they're like, this is not how I thought this was going to go. What's happened to their preparation to lob the ball back over the net at me? It's gone. It's gone. And I'm going to, you know what? Do I want it just a little bit gone? Do I want to have served it into the net, or do I want to take that ball and knock it out of the stadium so that ball is gone? Gone. I could also say it'd be a big mistake to get locked into something that wasn't liquid, wouldn't it? There, I've said that got them to say yes. So if they say no or yes, I'm still happy. But I've gone within 10 seconds of them disagreeing with me to them what? Agreeing with me. Why is it so important to have them agreeing with me? Because now we're no longer fighting. We're on the same side of the net. So you startle them by breaking that objection paradigm, that athletic stance to fight you. That's gone away. You've agreed with them, but most importantly, then within 10 seconds, you got them what? Within 10 seconds, you got them what? We're just agreeing with me, right? And now they're back to agreeing with me within 10 seconds. So this crisis is now what? What's happened to this crisis? It's gone. And then I'm going to gotch them. So when we gotch them with an objection, this is different from the little verbal pat in the back you give when somebody gives you a right answer. This is a different gotch. This is a big gotch. When somebody gives us an objection, we need to start to tell them that we say absolutely. Then we ask a question where they get them back agreeing, pair back a question so they're agreeing with us immediately. And then we want to go into 5 reasons why their objection was right. So if they say this does not give me liquidity, what are some reasons that are valid that people would say that? What are some people? Well, here's 5 that I came up with. There's a gazillion. I said, well, you never know when you'll need money. Is that a valid, is that a valid reason to be concerned about liquidity? I locked up my money once and bad things happened. Is that a valid thing? I love this one because when I'm getting on somebody's side, when I'm gotching somebody with an objection, I like to use a personal story. This is the only time. See, I don't want you using personal stories during 21-point checklist to tell them why the 21 things are important or why. But when it comes to overcome objection, I love using personal stories. Any idea why when it comes to overcome objections, I love personal stories? There's 2 reasons for it. If I have a personal story that validates what they're saying, what does that say about me being a friend or a foe, or me understanding or climbing into their shoes? I'm saying what? Yeah, we're brothers. That's right, Atlanta. We're brothers. You know what? I'm just like them, Cheryl. I know it can happen. Believe me, I'm the poster child for that thing. See, I'll use that. That's one of the reasons, is it immediately identifies me as saying, man, your concern is 100% valid because that thing happened to me. That's one thing. The other thing is when I tell a personal story, how long can I stretch that out? Long time. Is that a good thing or a bad thing in this particular instance? It's a good thing, right, Wade? I'll explain why in a second. I could also, another better investment may come around. Is that valid? It would be stressful having my money locked up. Is that valid? You wouldn't have control of your money anymore. Is that valid? Are these things all valid? These things are what? All valid. And what's it telling them about me? If I go through this, with them? And is it okay if I even want to write these things down as I'm thinking about them? It would be okay to write these things down right in front of a client. Heck yeah. What is it telling them when I'm doing this? That what they said was what? Absolutely valid. So I put myself in their shoes. So now do they think of me as a foe that they have to lob the ball back at me, or do they think of me as a friend, a brother, somebody who gets them? Which one do they think? A friend, exactly. So do you get what's happened so far? And now let's talk about, well, I think we're going to talk about it here in a second, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it ahead in case I forget. Why do you think I want to spend a lot of time on this GOTS? I call it putting real estate between the time they said something and the time I'm going to get them to tell me the bottom line or tell me why my point of view is right. So I want to put some time or distance or real estate between the time they say something and the time I have them realize that my point of view is right. What am I doing? Why do I want to put some time between that period? What am I hoping they do? They forget, Jonathan, that they forget. Here's the funny thing, right, Nicholas? They forget because I want to be going on and on to the point where they think, what even brought up this conversation? Why do I want them to forget or even think what brought up this conversation? Because then they don't have, when I have them agree with me, they don't have to admit they're what? Wrong. So if we all forgot what brought this conversation up and they agree with me, do they have to admit that they were wrong and they agree with me, or do they just have to admit that they agree with me? They just have to admit that they agree with me. That's the importance of putting some real estate. That's why we want to talk about 5 things. That's why a personal story is a good thing. I'm hoping that they'll forget what even brought this conversation up. When you get good, believe me, when I do this, they don't even remember what even brought this conversation up. But even if you don't get that good, if you put some time between that, what can we all pretend? If we put some distance or time between that, even if you're not that good at it, if you put some time or distance between it, what can we all pretend just happened then? Like it never happened, right? We can pretend like it never happened, so they don't have to admit that they're wrong. I don't have to rub their face in it that they're wrong. We can just kind of pretend that little thing that they said never happened, and we can just move on. And then not having to admit they're wrong is what allows us to overcome that objection. Make sense? So how do we learn that skill? Here's how I'd recommend it. Should you be doing your 15-minute drill in your car? No, that's right. Everybody's getting that right. I love you guys. That's right. Because if when they're doing the 15-minute drill, you are emails off, phones off, doors locked, and you're listening to a tape, stopping, saying what you should have said, backing the tape back up, listening to what triggered what you want to work on, doing it again. That requires a lot of thinking and using of your tape recorder. But here's something you can do in your car. If you're a conservative person, put on NPR. If you're a liberal person, put on talk radio. If you're neither, put on sports radio. Whatever it is, find something on the radio where they're going to say something that you don't agree with. And then spend 5 minutes explaining why that point of view that you do not agree with is valid. Now, if you have ever been in debate club or understand how debate works, do they only want you to train for one point of view or both points of view? One side of the argument or both sides of the argument? Both. That's right. Both. Because if you don't understand the other person's point of view, are you going to have a lot of success overcoming it? No. So if you want to get better at this, you can complain and complain and complain that it's hard, or you can just do what? Practice it. And I guarantee you, if you just spent 5 minutes a day listening to things on the radio on the way into work, on the way home, that you didn't agree with, and then explain why that's a valid point of view, guess what's going to magically happen? What was once hard becomes what? Easy. That's right. Natural. So there's really any of the things that Jeff, are any of the things that we teach, are they really that hard? How many of the things that we teach, Jeff, could we take somebody who's a sophomore in high school and teach them?
Oh, I would say everything. I mean, the things that and I always tell people, these are things that you do naturally a lot of the time anyway. If you're married and you've been married for a while, you know you can't just lay down the law and tell your wife how it is. You're good at listening, getting on her side, and then having a conversation. So these things, you just require focus.
Yeah, focus. That's what it is. Focus, focus, focus. And the ability to, because if you tell somebody it's something, if you keep telling yourself it's hard, guess what it's going to magically be? Hard. But instead, what we shouldn't do is say it's hard. We're just going to, what should we say? Oh, this is something I'm working on. Got to work on it. So don't be telling yourself it's hard. But that's the best way to get better at, on the fly, getting on somebody's side. It gets rid of this fight, flight. Okay? So again, at this point though, some people say we're not any closer to, if all we do is agree with them, parrot their objection back in the form of a question, get them agreeing with us, and then we tell them 5 reasons why their point of view is right, and then we use the word and, we're not any closer to overcoming the objection. But are we? Are we closer to overcoming the objection if we do all those things? Yes, because now we magically got them what? Listening to us. And the big thing is we just want to put some real estate, some time between when they give us the objection and when we have them start to tell us why our point of view is right. Because we don't want them thinking, I may not always be right, but I'm never wrong. We don't want them thinking that they're wrong. We want them thinking that, oh, that the point of view that Mike's making, that makes total sense. So the good news is that when you do that real estate, they'll forget what even got us into this conversation in the first place. So the objection template, acknowledge their objection, parrot it back in the form of a question so that and do I care if they say no or yes to this question? No, all I care is that they're agreeing with my point of view again. Then I get on their client side with 5 different things. I'm looking for 5 things, or I'm looking for time? Am I looking for 5 things, or am I looking for time? I'm looking for time. I'd love for you, if you're eye to eye with them, I'd love for you to be shooting for a 3-minute getting on their side, explaining why they're right. Believe me, after you get on their side for 3 minutes, guess how many people remember what brought up the whole conversation? Nobody. Nobody. And when I have you work for 3 minutes or 5 minutes, you're never going to do that with a client. You may be at a minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes. But if you work for 1.5 or 2 minutes, guess how much time you're going to spend? Half of that. So be shooting for 3 to 5 minutes so that when you're in front of a real client, even half of that, you're spending enough time on their side. Then I'm going to use the word and not the word but. And then I'm going to have them tell me why they should move forward. And how do I do that, guys? How do I learn what I want them to tell me? Where's that on the website? Where's that on the website, guys? Nobody's answering. So let me go one more time. Oh, we got some answers now. You go to implementation meeting, objections, handling objections, and then there's the bottom lines. There's the bottom lines. Okay. If I go back here, I hate annuities. So we actually even just walk you through that. Okay. So was this helpful? First thing is, we don't want to come up with we don't want objection. We should be looking for objections, not be surprised by them. But if you want to have less objections rather than more objections, learn the scripts, and guess what magically happens to the objections? Now, here's the funny thing. Remember we said that we don't want to look like we're putz. We don't want to look like we're lost control. We don't want to look like somebody sold us something instead of buying something. Think about this. Do clients, I say, go into a meeting looking for objections. I tell you what, when I'm going into a meeting, I don't look for objections much anymore. Why? It's probably stupid, but I don't look for objections much anymore. Why? I don't get them. Why don't I have it? Because I've mastered the scripts, right, Nicholas? I've mastered the scripts. So the thing is, when you use the scripts and somebody moves forward, why don't they feel like they've been sold something? Why don't they feel like they've been taken advantage of? Why don't they feel like they've been lost control? Because everything was their idea. You don't get objections when you use the script because it's all their idea. Who are they going to object with themselves? Are they going to say, yeah, I want to do this? No, I'm not. Yes, I do. Yes, I'm not. Are they going to do that with themselves? No. When it's all their ideas, you get no objection. So the best thing to do is learn the scripts backwards and forwards, and then you don't need to worry about objections. But If you do need to go over, yeah, they'd be schizophrenic, exactly, if they're going back and forth, arguing with themselves about, yes, I want to do this, no, you don't, yes, I do, yes, no, I don't. No, they're not going to do that. So they, it's their idea. You won't get the objections if you learn the scripts. But if you don't, if you're still not perfect on the scripts, if you still got work to do on the scripts, you need to get good at this template. Make sense? So is this helpful to you guys? Super. Awesome. Well, again, thanks so much for being in and being on a call on a day off for many of our competitors. So kudos for you for getting better every single week. I really appreciate it. And boy, I tell you, next week we're going to talk again about marketing. We're going to answer a lot of the questions that you have from the marketing call we did last week. And boy, I was ecstatic last year because so many people learned the 21-point checklist. I can see now that was fantastic because of all the people that jumped on the marketing. You guys are excited because you're looking for ways to use that 21-point checklist. So thanks for everybody jumping on. And because of that, we've had a lot of questions. We'll cover those again next week. If you got more questions, shoot them to Missy so she can be a little bit more prepared and maybe give a better explanation for things. But you guys are doing an awesome job already this year. I can't tell you how I'm excited I am, and we'll talk again next Monday. Thanks, everybody.